lazima draw ifanye. Mama Mega.
Draw Mega Dollar Lottery inatangazwa after every 4 minutes.
Kitu unahitajika kufanya, uchague tu namba zako.
4 minutes are enough to win big with Mega Dollar. Just go to Lipa na M-Pesa, select Pay Bill, enter business number 295888, enter account name KBC. Deposit 10 shillings or more, enter your PIN and press OK, then choose 10 numbers from 1 to 80 and send to 29588. And you can win up to 30 million shillings every 4 minutes. Deposit, play, and win with Mega Dollar. Big game for big winners.
Bishop Margaret Wanjiru of Jesus is Alive Ministry invites you every Tuesday at 10 p.m. for spiritual uplifting messages in The Glory is Here. Join Bishop Margaret Wanjiru as she ministers the Word of God. You cannot afford to miss it.
Some they pay no mind, but now them notice blue. So take your ones, your 50s, put your 100s, see your shoes. And to my fans, you know I love you.
The Presbyterian University of East Africa cuts a niche for itself among institutions offering entrepreneurial skills to its students with emphasis on producing job creators and not job seekers, making the university a world-class university of choice providing holistic and transformational education based on Christian values. The university offers programs accredited by the Commission for University Education in master degrees, bachelor degrees, and diplomas. Presbyterian University of East Africa producing holistic trained graduates for service to God and humanity and staying at the frontier of knowledge.
Well, a very good evening to you. You are just in time for Channel 1 NewsHour on a day when the government has stepped up its war against graft, ordering all heads of procurement and accounting in government ministries and parastatals to step aside pending investigations into allegations of graft. And that is what we will be discussing here on Channel 1 NewsHour. That will be forming the basis of our interactive segment on Perspective. We will be looking at the latest developments as the government moves to rein in on graft in the government. What are some of the legal issues around this, and what are we likely to see going forward? It's also a day when there have been developments at the Moi Girls High School. We have seen at least 5 teachers and non-teaching staff, all male, undergo a DNA testing as the government also moves in to ascertain what exactly happened at the institution on Saturday night amid rape claim allegations. And that is what will be forming the basis of our interactive segment, the opinion poll question tonight. We will be seeking to find out from you how indeed can we improve the safety of children in schools. How can we improve the safety of our children in schools? The SMS line at 22162. Let me know what you think. On Twitter, you can talk to me on at KBC Channel 1, my Twitter handle at Kato Achinga. How can we improve the safety of children in schools? That is our question tonight. But for now, let's focus on what's also coming up in the highlights.
Government suspends accounting and procurement heads in government departments and state corporations as the anti-corruption purge intensifies. 5 teachers among suspects ordered to undertake DNA tests as probe into alleged rape at Moi Girls High School gather space. Demolitions of condemned buildings within Nairobi City set to kick off tomorrow.
Wapate masomo mazuri wapate majengo mazuri, ili pia vile vile nao wakaweze ndoto yao ya elimu ikaweze kutimia.
And it is a sorry state of affairs at Katsangani Primary School in Tana-Delta, with pupils forced to study under deplorable conditions.
Welcome back. My name is Catherine Achenga. Our sign language interpreter this evening is Lucy Maura. Later on Perspective, I will be discussing the war on graft by the government, and I will be talking to Bishop John Warari from the Evangelical Association of Kenya, as well as John Swaka, who is an advocate. And we will be seeking to find out the latest developments and indeed what steps the government is taking in the war against graft. Let's now begin with that particular story. And all heads of procurement and accounting units in ministries, government departments, agencies and state corporations have been sent home pending fresh vetting. Now, the head of public service, Joseph Kinyua, issued the circular Monday evening following President Uhuru Kenyatta's directive on Madaraka Day that all high-ranking government officers must undergo polygraph tests. Eric Begon begins this coverage with that development.
For the first time in a long time, the government appears keen to root out corruption from within its ranks. The head of state has moved to tame the vice, following revelations of massive graft in government departments. Billions of taxpayers' money have been lost through fraud, and it appears certain officers and government entities have converted the public offices into cash cows for self-enrichment.
Fellow Kenyans, we must have an honest country to protect our liberty and be able to use it to build a glittering African nation.
The latest circular by the head of public service comes in response to public outcry that greeted revelations of corruption scandals at NYS, NCPB, Kenya Power and Kenya Pipeline. During this year's Madaraka Day celebrations, President Kenyatta announced that all procurement officers will undergo polygraph tests to prove their suitability to hold public office.
As an initial step, all heads of procurement and accounts in government ministries, departments, agencies, and parastatals will undergo fresh vetting, including polygraph testing, to determine their integrity and suitability. Those who shall fail the vetting will stand suspended.
Those who thought this was just another declaration by the president are in for a shock.
We must, with a sense of great urgency, destroy and eliminate corruption in our country before it fully destroys us and the future of our children. This war must be fought and won by all of us, particularly that which comprises public service.
Further to this order, the head of public service delivered a bombshell Monday. In a statement to newsrooms, Joseph Kinyua has ordered all heads of procurement and accounting units in ministries, departments, agencies and state corporations to step aside with immediate effect. As a matter of urgency, the officers are required to submit personal information to the Office of Head of Public Service by Friday 8th without failure. These civil servants are particularly required to provide information on their assets, liabilities, and previous record of service. The move, according to Kinyua, is geared towards promoting confidence in public service, even as he assured the affected that the process will be above reproach. Kinyua maintains that the president is committed to creating a public service that serves the needs and the aspirations of Kenyans who do not succumb to greed by abusing office for self-enrichment. Eric Biegon reporting for Channel 1 News.
And still on the war of graft, suspects in the alleged theft of 468 million shillings at the National Youth Service will learn whether they will be released on bail tomorrow when the Anti-Corruption Court will make a determination on their bail application. 20 more suspects, among them government officers, business persons and directors of companies, were charged in connection with the alleged theft today, bringing the total number of suspects in the case to 42. The development coming as Chief Magistrate Douglas Ogot issued a warrant of arrest against 2 directors of a company accused of receiving millions of shillings despite not offering any services. Ben Chumba has the report.
After spending the weekend at different police stations within Nairobi, the second group of 20 suspects who surrendered to the Directorate of Criminal Investigations last week over the alleged links to the 468 million shilling scandal at the National Youth Service were finally arraigned before the Anti-Corruption Court to answer to the charges. The suspects, who included government officers, business people and company bosses, were charged with multiple counts, among them abuse of office, conspiracy to commit economic crimes, fraudulent acquisition of public property, and failure to comply with applicable procedures. The suspects, who denied all the charges preferred against them, risk fines of up to 58 million shillings or a 10-year jail term, or both if convicted. They had failed to appear in court last week when 22 others, including Youth Affairs Principal Secretary Lilian Omolo and NYS Director General Richard Dubai, denied charges of fraud and abuse of office. Chief Magistrate Douglas Ogot issued a warrant of arrest for 2 NYS suspects after their lawyer failed to give concrete explanation on why their clients failed to appear in court. The 2 are directors of Acrod Holdings Limited, accused of receiving millions of shillings for absolutely doing nothing. The total number of those who have been arraigned in court over the fraud now stands at 42, after 22 other suspects were charged last week in connection with the alleged 9 billion shillings loss at the National Youth Service. The 42 suspects, including Youth Affairs Principal Secretary Lilian Omolo and NYS Director General Richard Dubai, will be in Tuesday afternoon at the Anti-Corruption Court, where a decision on their bail application will be made. Ben Chumba, reporting for Channel 1 NewsHour.
Of course, we'll be keeping tabs of that, and we will be telling you what exactly will transpire at the courts tomorrow. And now to a story that will be forming the basis of our opinion poll question tonight. Detectives drawn from the police headquarters and Kilimani police station have begun collecting DNA samples from 5 male teachers and subordinate staff at the Moi Girls High School as investigations into an alleged rape incident gather pace. Police maintained tight security at the institution Monday, with detectives and officials from the government chemist spending most part of the day piecing together evidence. The latest development coming amid mounting pressure on the school's administration to provide answers over a series of misfortunes that have hit the institution in recent days.
It was the latest in a series of incidents at Moi Girls High School that has elicited debate, raising fresh fears over the safety of students at the institution. Revelations that a Form 2 student was raped in the wee hours of Saturday morning, now placing the school administration under the microscope.
Tunaona kwamba kuna dalili kubwa za kujaribu kuhujumu uchunguzi ama kuficha yale ambayo yanatokea katika uchunguzi tangu wakati wa mwanzo. Kwa sababu tunajua kwamba msichana alidhulumiwa, lakini shule haijawa wazi katika kuelezea yalotokea, na shule imewaficha wale ambao ni wamehusika katika mambo haya.
The now traumatized victim so distraught to narrate the entire incident.
Mambo kidini kwetu Kiislamu tunaichukulia ni jambo la, ni kama kumshusha hadhi sana, kwa kuwa wasichana wetu wa Kiislamu huwa tunawalinda katika hadhi ya juu kabisa.
After kujua ukweli, baada tuwezi taka mtoto arudi kwa hiyo shule. Juu hatakuwa anasoma ile na akiwa free kabisa.
A horror story of events of the fateful night, as graphic as is disturbing. Investigations into the incident now taking shape, with police ordering all male teachers and several subordinate staff at the school to undertake DNA tests in connection with the incident. On Monday morning, police maintained tight security at the institution, with the detectives alongside officials from the government chemist moving in to collect DNA samples in a bid to apprehend those behind the incident. And as investigations into the incident gathered pace, former students of the school and women drawn from the nearby Kibera slums camped at the school's entrance, protesting against what they termed as escalating cases of insecurity at the institution, including a fire incident that left 8 students dead.
Hatuwezi kusema kwa ukweli nini inafanyika, lakini tuna hofu kwamba wanajua yale yalitokea na huenda hawatatoa taarifa kamili ya tukio.
Tutaogopa na tutachoka, tutaendelea, manake tukinyamaza vitendo kama hizi zitaendelea kabisa. Leo ni Moi Girls, hatujui kesho ni shule gani.
Tumechoka na tukio kila saa Moi Girls kuna kitu imefanyikana, moto ulichoma watoto wetu wakakufa. Hatujawahi ambiwa moto ilikuwa ya nini na alosha moto, hatujawahi pewa ripoti ya hiyo moto. So na hii pia ni ya pili.
The school has since been closed for a week to allow for investigations.
The quite unfortunate incident there at Moi Girls High School. One student been raped on Saturday night while in the dormitory. The government now ordering the closure of the school, and that is what is forming the basis of our interactive segment. And we are asking you tonight, how can we improve the safety of children in schools? How can we improve the safety of children in schools? The SMS line 22162. Share with me your thoughts. Don't forget to let me know who you are and where you're texting me from. On Twitter, you can talk to us at KBC Channel 1. My Twitter handle at Kato Achinga. How can we improve the safety of children in schools? That is our question tonight. Keep them coming. I will be sampling them later on in this broadcast. And now let's shift focus to Katsanga, where Katsangani Primary School in Tana Delta, Tana River County urgently requires at least 5 million shillings to construct classrooms and basic infrastructure such as toilets to enable pupils attend school in sanitary conditions. The school, situated at Kurawa sub-location with a population of 425 pupils, has only 2 permanent classrooms, forcing learners to quench their thirst for education under trees and mud-walled structures, while the only available pit latrine is almost caving in. Here is the story of this forgotten school, where even teachers have to use a dilapidated structure to keep important school records and prepare lessons. Caroline Kamau with this very disturbing report.
Education, it is said, is to be the greatest equalizer. It is a virtual currency that would one day ensure even the poor make a positive impact in their lives. However, the inequalities that face some students in their quest for education in Kenya make the adage seem like a mirage for pupils such as this one's. These dilapidated structures are what they have to contend with when they get to the precincts of Katsangani Primary School situated in Tana Delta.
Wapate masomo mazuri, wapate majengo mazuri, ili pia vile vile nao wakaweze ndoto yao ya elimu ikaweze kutimia.
Majengo yetu ni duni, watoto wanasoma kama machokora, manake hatuna viti, maji yenyewe ni ya kuombaomba, walimu pia hawatoshi, ni aende kule, anavutwa huku aende kule.
The school only has 2 mud-walled and raffia-thatched pit latrines shared by the 425 pupils and 8 teachers. The latrines are almost caving in, and the school community is forced to answer the call of nature in the bushes. The school has only 2 permanent classrooms and 15 desks. Most learners have to sit on logs or on the floor as they follow through the lessons. Despite the struggles, learners are still able to post impressive results in the Kenya Certificate of Primary Education Examination. The Katsangani community is calling on both the national and county governments, as well as well-wishers, to provide funds for infrastructure development to enable these children compete fairly with their peers in other parts of the country.
Tunaomba wahisani duniani kote waliko waje watusaidie. Hawa wanafunzi ni wanafunzi wa Kenya na wako na haki kusoma katika mazingira mazuri.
Tunang'ang'ana na watoto wetu wao watapata elimu, lakini ni hivyo tunaomba kama tunaweza kusaidika, tusaidike zaidi.
Caroline Kamau reporting for Channel 1 Lunchtime News.
That is the learning conditions in that particular school in Tana Delta. Obviously, something really needs to be done. This is the 21st century, really. The students cannot be learning in such a classroom at this point in time. Well, on that note, it's time for us to take a short break on Channel 1 NewsHour. But before that, a quick reminder of our opinion poll question. Tonight, we're asking you, how can we improve the safety of children in schools? How can we improve the safety of children in schools? Keep them coming on 22162. Share with me your thoughts and let me know where you're texting me from. On Twitter at KBC Channel 1, my Twitter handle at Kato Achinga. We take a short break, but when we come back, we will be moving to to our interactive segment, Perspective. And tonight we will be focusing on the latest war on graft, following a directive that has been issued by the government for all heads of procurement and accounting officers in all state corporations and government agencies to step aside pending investigations of graft in the different government ministries. And that is what we will be discussing. My guest in studio this evening is Bishop John Warari from the Evangelical Association of Kenya, as well as John Swaka, who is an advocate. That is a discussion coming up shortly, so stay tuned.
Je, waweza fanya nini kwa dakika 4? Unaweza piga chef?
Kila kitu ni mega.
Waweza pika ugali?
Pesa hapa ni mega.
Labda waweza fua nguo? Ama unaweza tengeneza milioni 30. 4 minutes are enough to win big with Mega Dollar. Just go to Lipa na M-Pesa, select Pay Bill, enter business number 295888, enter account name KBC, deposit 10 shillings or more, enter your PIN and press OK, then choose 10 numbers from 1 to 80 and send to 29588. And you can win up to 30 million shillings every 4 minutes. Deposit, play, and win with Mega Dollar. The big game for big winners.
De algún juego que quieres ganar sin tener piedad. ¿Quién eres tú?
Welcome back. You're watching Channel 1 News Hour. It's time for Perspective, and of course the discussion we're having today is as regards the latest developments, directive by government ordering all heads of procurement and accounting to step aside pending investigations into graft. Remember, of course, on Friday we did see President Uhuru Kenyatta order that all of them will have to undergo a polygraph test, and also they will be investigating to ensure that they weed out corruption in government. And of course all these officers also asked to tender their documents, their assets and liabilities, as well as their papers to the government by Friday, and their deputies to take over office immediately as the government tries to put its house in order. And that is what we are discussing this evening. Our guests in studio, of course, we have with us Bishop John Warari from the Evangelical Association of Kenya, as well as John Swaka, who is an advocate, and they will be helping us digest all this. Let's begin with you, Bishop. Your immediate reaction to the latest directive. What do you think?
Thank you so very much. I want to say it is appropriate, and I think it should have been done yesterday. Of course, we are going to have casualties, and change is painful. Our nation actually belongs to posterity, and we ought to leave this nation a better place for our children. And so it's a matter of principle, and the government is doing its work, and I think the filtering will be painful, but nonetheless it's needful. We need to face our fears, and from there we will have a better nation. Yeah.
Swaka, from a legal point of view, I mean, natural justice demands that the presumption of innocence until proven guilty. What would you back of the latest development?
Yeah, of course, natural justice demands that all sides are heard. And before such a blanket decision is made, it's very paramount and very instructive to make sure that the person that you're dealing with have actually been implicated in a manner or another. So as then you may request that you guys step aside pending investigations, pave way for investigations, so as you may see what truly went wrong where. But issuing a blanket directive just to all government officials who are in charge of procurement and accounting officers. Well, it is an effort to try and have the fight on graft stepped up. Maybe by trying to say that let us try a different angle. Maybe let's try to go to the root. Let's try and get to the bottom of it. But you see, when you do that again, you must be within the parameters of the law.
So are we putting the cart before the horse?
We are actually, because by so doing, what we're basically trying to say is that all these people blanketly are suspects. Even a suspect has rights. It's important to hear him out. And so when you say all of you step aside, let's have somebody else running that particular docket. The person who's running that particular docket has not been vetted yet as well. You understand? So for me, I thought, if then we're saying step aside, we should then replace them momentarily with persons that we think we have vetted.
They say that their deputies will step in the meantime.
But have they been vetted as well? They have not been vetted. You understand?
Bishop, I mean, what did you make of this? Do you think the government has the capacity, even as you know, it says all of them to step aside, to be able to investigate all these cases?
It's a tall order because really these are very many people. And then I think all of us will have to help the government, because the government, I want to believe it's you and me and those in leadership. I want to believe that if we are willing to get rid of the vice, we will be patient and we will have a goodwill and not really being pessimistic, but we should be optimistic that this is the right thing, and we have to begin somewhere. If unfortunately it has to begin with those officers, procurement officers and the rest, that is where the cut will start.
But don't they have a right, you know, to be heard before being judged and without being condemned and heard? I think
they will be given all the opportunity. I think this thing will be done in the open, and they will have the opportunity. Kenya, we have very good judiciary, we have very good courts and wonderful advocates like my brother John here. I think he's happy. John is very happy because here comes a very big opportunity for him to, represent his clients. And we wish them well. Actually, we just don't want to bring this nation down. What we are saying, I think the government and the media and the church, we have had enough. And so thank God that the government has put its foot down, and we are saying we must clean house.
Swaka, are we likely to see some of these officers, you know, moving to court to also, you know, want to be protected?
Definitely.
They have their rights.
Definitely. You know, our constitution is very robust. The Constitution of 2010 gives a lot of latitude to litigants. And where you feel your right has been infringed upon, nothing stops you from petitioning the High Court of Kenya for some sort of relief. And if anyone will feel aggrieved that I've been told to step aside without the proper reasons, nobody has pointed an accusing finger at me. I've not been audited, so as to the extent that a lacuna has been found within my docket, then why am I being told to step aside? If somebody moves to court, the court may give them injunctive orders or some sort of relief, saying let them continue holding those particular dockets. And so we might open it up to a lot of messy encounters between the government and its own officials. For me, I want to believe that the law is a bit clear that, of course, every suspect has rights. The warm graft must be worn, but it must start from an individual perspective. Each one of us, not only those procurement persons, but graft has been able to run across and through our society. And so it begins with us as individuals.
Of course, this is a government directive that has come through a circular. I mean, if you don't have a letter on your desk telling you to step aside, are we likely to see them, you know, not reporting to work tomorrow because it was with immediate effect? Of course. But if you don't have a letter, you know, addressed to you, would you step aside if it was, you know, you? If
you have a letter saying that you step aside, the only thing that can make you come back the following day is by going to court for relief.
But this is a circular. They haven't received the letters yet. So should they step aside, or they have to wait for
no, individual letters ought to come, because then you'll be acting from a rumor point of view. We had the announcements. I'm very sure the government, even after announcing the circular that the procurement officers and the accounting officers to step down in immediate effect, it must actually follow up with a letter. That is what the law actually requires of us, saying and explaining why they're stepping aside, for what period and for what purposes. That is a must.
So as of now, tomorrow we don't expect to see them, not coming to work.
No, they ought to. They ought to come to work until they receive the letter saying, now step aside. Yes.
All right, Bishop. This what he just the blanket action that has been taken by the government. Don't you think perhaps it might begin to scare people about joining the public service, because you don't know if tomorrow they are going to say everybody, whether you're guilty or not?
Yes, it may scare people, but I think it's preparing our nation for a better tomorrow, whereby we must be honest, we must be ethical, we must actually stand for the truth. And those people who are transparent and walking right, what do they have to fear, really? Because if you are delivering and you are not involving yourself in the scam, I want to believe your stay is safe. But if you have some underherds, some frauds and gray area in your life, then I'm sorry, you have to be afraid. Yes.
Is this perhaps a silver bullet that we've been waiting for?
No. Okay, you may look at it from different perspectives. Maybe the government may say it is. But again, I'll beg to define, say, you remember there's a time a list of suspects was tabled in Parliament, they were named out and all that, they were called out and we said, wow, there we are. And you saw the ripple effects. And so by just issuing a blanket order, and people will start feeling that we're being condemned unheard, and there'll be lots of litigations actually to protect themselves and to protect their positions, because remember, some of these people, maybe they're approaching their sunset years. Some of them have really worked for the government for so long, and they're feeling like, if I let things continue this way, I'm going home without any benefit. So we may see people moving to court for purposes of reprieve and say, you know what, I was condemned unheard. For me, what the government ought to have done is to check out particular dockets which have been affected. And then, based on the credible information which they'll be having, they require the accounting officers and the procurement officers and whoever is responsible for that particular docket to step aside, indicating reasons and saying, by stepping aside, we'll be covering these kind of areas during the investigations. But once you issue out a blanket order, then it affects both the suspects and also the innocent, and the suspects will hide within the innocent people, or the innocent persons will get swallowed by the suspects, and again you end up with a situation which may not really have resolved your real intentions.
I think we should have done it differently, Bishop, perhaps, in terms of, based on what he's saying.
Yeah, really. The scriptures has a very good example of what he said, that there is a farmer who planted choice wheat. And when the farmer and his workers went to sleep, the following day, as they went to look at the farm, they found that the wheat had come up with tares. And the workers wanted to do what we want to do in Kenya. They felt we have to go and uproot the tares and save our wheat. But the owner of the farm said, while we slept, the enemy came and did this. But let's be careful, at least when uprooting the tares, we will also uproot the wheat. So I think caution here should be applied, and I'm not an authority in law, and I hear what he's saying, my brother John is saying, that we must have a watertight cases, because again, the most disappointing thing in this sweeping of corruption in Kenya is that we've had cases where culprits have been identified, but and then, for example, an institution like EACC thinks that we've a watertight case, they take it to the DPP, and then we hear there are a lot of holes that have been poked in the case, and we are disappointed. So I think diligence here must be applied, and people should not fear going to court, because the court is where the hair is split. You have to state your case, and indeed you are not guilty until proven guilty.
That's right.
So the institution that we have, our institutions, one, we must esteem our institutions. And the reason why we have gone to this depth of hopelessness is because we have not really esteemed our institution. We've been mutilating our institutions, and it has been very disappointing. If we have trust in our courts, and indeed we do, let these officers with their advocates go to court, and some will be found clean, thank God, and they can go back to their work, and some must go home. Yes.
Okay, EACC, I mean, what do you think of its fate now, based on the government seems to have decided, to take the law, to go in this direction to deal with the problem of graft, because EACC, like I said, it hasn't produced much. What do you make of your fate?
Of course, when it comes to budgeting and funding, EACC has been on the top there. Whatever they've requested for, they've been given. But you see, the investigations have been, in a way or another, mishmash. They've been in a state of El Dorado, whereby you see very high-profile cases being handed over to the prosecuting authority, who is the office of the DPP. As Bishop said, holes will be poked in, or even if they went to court, then they'll not meet the threshold of a conviction. And then we've seen very many people just walking away after a lengthy process, after a process that started very flowery, very soundly, and then it just dissipates. And then people have learned that that is how we've been dealing with graft. We start with very high-pitched voices, but the way matters disappear in court, the way people get acquitted, then nobody knows. But the government seems to have come to a point where it has to also shade its own image and say, listen, people will accuse us and say, what did you do? So let us grab the bull by its horns and deal with this monster called corruption. And for that, for me, I say, it's recommendable. Though, by doing so, we need not to be overzealous to the extent that we trample upon the same law, the same rights, which will later on require it in court to basically be able to bring forth the statement that we want to bring forth, and that is, this is graft. These people are corrupt. Let the law deal with them. Once you start infringing upon the rights of such people, then the law will come to their aid. So it will be counterproductive.
It will be counterproductive.
Yes.
All right. I'm informed we are almost running out of time, but what do you really think is the solution to the problem of graft in our country? This is a cancer that is obviously strongly us.
Yeah, that's true. Corruption has eaten right into the fabric of our nation, and I want to believe it must start from me. For change must start with me. I must take responsibility, and like a patient will be helped by the doctor if they go to the doctor admitting that they are unwell, and that is what we should do. We should really admit that our foundation as a nation, they've been shaken, and we must go back to our Creator. When you get lost, you must go back to the crossroad where you missed the way, and from there you can retrace your steps back. So I would say the church and the religious sector, we have been vocal, and we will continue being vocal. We will continue using our prophetic mandate and pointing this nation to the right direction. So the healing and change will come when we go back to our Maker and ask for divine help. And then the responsibility of the government, the judiciary, And for us as Wanjiko, we must be willing to change.
Yeah. You've said that, then I remembered, what the president also said on Friday. He said, corruption is not just in the public service.
Yes.
We've seen preachers preying on their congregation.
Correct.
We've seen lawyers, taking advantage of their clients. Is there a way that you also, as the members of the clergy, those in the church, do you have a way which you can be able to check on preachers who are also engaging in some of these activities?
Correct. Like our organization, which is an umbrella body, that is Evangelical Alliance of Kenya, we do have a code of ethics. We do have guidelines, and we have a council of bishops where if a preacher is getting out of way, we summon him and try to help him come back to the right way. And so I want to believe self-regulation is very important. And then if he oversteps, for example, we saw in the television some preachers who are just fleecing members of the public. In other words, those are criminals. And there is the penal code, there is the law, and they should face the law. What really?
But are we reining in on them? Because we know they're there, but in terms of action, what is it that you do?
Like I've said, our Evangelical Alliance of Kenya and Inter-Religious Council of Kenya, we do call these people, and we do have some work with them, because actually what is necessary is for us to shepherd the good and the bad. Because again, if we say we don't have bad members of the clergy, we are not honest. They are there. And what we should do is to keep on bringing them back to the line. And if they will not hear their fellow clergy voice, and we have the law of the land, they should face the law. And I think that is what the president said.
Swaka, lawyers preying on their clients.
No, of course. For every profession, there will be people whom perhaps may not adhere to the code of conduct, to the code of ethics. Having said that, we have formulations, and we have ways of dealing with this kind of wrongdoing, especially to clients and to the members of the public. Of course, the Law Society of Kenya has its complaints commission, where you can lodge your complaint, and if it's weight enough, both the complainant and the accused, who is the counsel or the lawyer, will be called. They'll hear you out, and if there's a need, it will be moved over to the disciplinary committee, which will take action against that kind of person. So we have regulations. We have regulations to actually check out of this kind of bad habits or habits that may be endangering members of the public or clientele.
Okay, so what do you think really is the solution to perhaps the starting point in this war on graft, in your opinion, as we wrap up?
As I earlier said, this war will only be won if we go back to have a postmortem of individuals.
Okay.
It begins with me, begins with you.
So the vetting is a good way to start it.
Yes, individuals. Okay. But once we start attacking institutions, then it's well gone. The cancer is well spread. So you can't deal with an entire institution. It will be too taxing, too expensive, and it will be counterproductive. But us as individuals, we must start looking at it and say, what can I do? What is my role in this? Let me be straight, let me be clean, and let that counsel of cleanness and goodness spread to my neighbor. And once we do that, the whole of Kenya will be cleansed.
Will be transformed.
Yes.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. Of course, I've been talking to Bishop John Warari from the Evangelical Alliance of Kenya, as well as John Swaka, who is an advocate, just trying to put into perspective some of the legal issues, and of course, what are some of the things that we can do as a country as the government steps up the war on graft. But now let's move on to other news. And government agencies will on Tuesday embark on demolition about 300 buildings earmarked as unsafe in Nairobi's Huruma estate. During an inspection tour of structures in Huruma, it emerged that landlords have been repainting buildings earmarked for demolition, thus duping tenants to move in. Deputy Director of the National Disaster Management Unit, Pius Masai, urged residents living in condemned buildings to evacuate as soon as possible to avoid further loss of life.
The multi-agency operation will be spearheaded by the National Disaster Management Unit and Nairobi County Government. On Sunday, 3 people died after a 5-story building collapsed in Nairobi Huruma Estate, and the government is moving in to avert further loss of life.
Wale ambao mmetoa rangi ile ilikuwa mat kwa hizi mijengo, tuna record, hata ukitoa ni kazi bure. Tuko na record, na tukija kesho ama kesho kutwa tutaenda katika hiyo nyumba. Muweze kumjua ndio huyu mwenyewe waja awasali.
Speaking to area residents, Deputy Director of the National Disaster Management Unit, Pius Masai, urged residents living in structurally unsound buildings to relocate ahead of Tuesday's demolitions.
Safety and security begins with me and you. Mambo ya safety na security sio mambo ya kuletwa na watu wengine, wale wa watawala ama nani, ni nyinyi wenyewe.
In April 2016, about 50 people lost their lives in Huruma after a building collapsed. Since then, 2,000 buildings have been inspected and over 300 houses found to be unsafe.
Na Huruma kwa bahati mbaya tumekagua nyumba 2,011. Nyumba 2,011, nyumba 388 ni baya, hastahili kuishi watu.
During Monday's meeting with locals, it emerged that landlords have been using tactics to cover up buildings that have been marked for demolition.
Kuja mchana anapaka rangi, anabadilisha, nyinyi mnakubaliana na hiyo. Hiyo ni watu kama wewe ni mkaidi ufanye vitu kama hizo. Kwa nini unakubali vitu kama hizo yanatendeka? Simtumie na
hiyo nyumba ilikuwa mbaya. Mwenyewe alikuwa ameonywa. Nasikia alikuwa amechenga, akaonywa akapunguza ghorofa 2, tena akaja akaongeza 3. Sasa hiyo ni kuua watu. Sasa ukiwa landlord kama huyo, hiyo ndio tunaita impunity.
Regional County Commissioner Kang'ethe Thuku launched a new reporting platform dubbed Mulika Nyumba Mbaya, where residents were urged to report dangerous structures.
Na katika huu mtandao unatumia shortcode. Na hii shortcode ukiwa na kalamu uandike ni 22068. Nyinyi mkishuhudia nyumba ambazo zinakaa kama kuanguka, tafadhalini tupatie information.
Locals will also be trained on disaster management skills to avert death when disaster strikes.
Standby, kuwa tayari kila mtu, mtoto kwa mtu mzima, na emergency management. Wewe useme ile iko huko, haitakuangukia, haitakupata, iko karibu na wewe. La muhimu ni wewe kujua lolote likitokea, kuanzia kwa ile jambo rahisi na ile jambo nzito, utafanya nini?
For Channel 1 News Hour, I'm Emily K. Badi.
Every 4 minutes is a chance for you to win big with Mega Dollar. Just go to Lipa na M-Pesa, enter paybill number 295888, account name KBC, and amount from 10 shillings or more. Then select your 10 numbers from 1 to 80 and send to 29588. You can win up to 30 million shillings. Start playing now and win. Mega Dollar. Big winners every 4 minutes.
SportPesa Super Cup has come to Kenya. Kenya's own Gor, AFC, Sharks, and Kakamega Homeboys are getting ready to take on Tanzania's finest, Simba, Yanga, Singida, and JKU. The champion will face one of EPL greats, Everton FC, at Goodison Park. Don't miss another moment of football history. SportPesa Super Cup from the 3rd to 10th of June.
And now it's time for business, and agricultural experts are calling on the national government to give the devolved units more cash for agricultural research to help drive food production increase. They believe most local farmers cannot import their produce due to poor quality that cannot meet international market standards, which could be addressed through investing more in research.
The 2003 Malabo Declaration called on African countries to dedicate at least 10% of their national budgets to agriculture. A bulk of this cash was to be spent on research, but Kenya allocates meager resources directly to research, which has forced most such institutions to rely on development partners. This is affecting the quality and quantity of produce by most farmers in Kenya.
That when cover 10% of our budget should go to agriculture, but currently we're only doing 2%. So you see the gap between 10 and 2.
Uasin Gishu Governor Jackson Mandago says despite most local farmers having a surplus each harvest season, they cannot access international markets due to poor quality yields.
And therefore it is incumbent upon us as a nation and as a continent to make sure we upscale the question of research and make sure that whatever we produce meets both local and international standards.
He called for scrutiny of imported plant seeds to cushion farmers from poor seed varieties. They called for increased budgetary allocations for research as well as commercialization of agriculture-related innovations.
One of the things that we're looking at, also from policy all the way down to research, to the farmers, out to the farmers, and more importantly, to commercialize the innovations, to get the private sector involved.
If the government can invest more into activities of KEFIs, I believe that we can generate more income for this country.
KEFI says it has stepped up efforts to ensure local products meet international standards by setting up additional laboratories.
Our tax experts are against the introduction of another tax band at the rate of 35% as proposed in the draft Income Tax Bill 2018 and are instead rooting for expansion of the tax base to include the informal sector. PKF, a Kenya tax partner Michael Mburugu, argues that the proposed amendments in the income tax law are likely to make Kenya less attractive to investors against a backdrop of reducing tax rates in other countries, and that the current tax regime has overlooked the informal sector's revenue potential.
Ahead of the presentation of the budget 2018-2019 national budget slated for next week, tax experts at PKF Kenya are offering alternatives in place of the proposed changes to the draft Income Tax Bill 2018 that was published by the National Treasury last month.
Largely would be seen to be sort of panic by government to want to increase the tax rate, obviously to meet the debt burden, the repayment of the SGR loans, the Eurobonds and the others. Our feeling is that that is not sustainable. You do not grow the taxes by increasing the tax rate, but what you need to be doing is actually to expand the tax base, especially to the informal sector.
The tax experts want the National Treasury to retain the current tax bands and instead explore how to expand the tax base to net more from the informal sector. Under the current regime, most of those in the informal sector remain untaxed, yet the sector contributes 34% of Kenya's gross domestic product.
And that is why in 2009 the government introduced an overtax. And we think that this is what the government ought to pursue and to implement, because almost everybody in Kenya today is within the tax radar.
Instead of reviewing upwards the corporate tax from 30 to 35%, PKF proposes that the National Treasury should reduce corporate tax to 20% to make Kenya attractive to investors.
Many jurisdictions today are actually lowering the taxes and trying to attract investors.
As the foreign income tax amnesty period comes to a close at the end of this month, the firm is proposing that it be extended and the same offered locally on the iTax platform to help more people volunteer to join the tax bracket.
But another amnesty locally would be advantageous to government to give people a chance to come forth, declare principal taxes that they never declared before.
They argue that the government should leverage on iTax and e-citizen platforms to profile Kenyans and impose tax obligations on all citizens, however small, noting that this would in turn reduce the tax burden, which is currently shouldered by salaried staff and big companies.
That we are not going to be able to fight corruption on our own. It's important that we are able to join other countries, ask other countries to join in the battle so that we can take measures together.
Tax experts warn that corruption could be a major hindrance to the achievement of the Big Four agenda as well as economic growth in the long term.
And now construction works on the cross bridge connecting the port of Mombasa and the standard gauge railway Mombasa terminal has been under construction since mid-December last year. It is now complete. Now the 250-meter radius bridge is part of the 2.73-kilometer SGR port relief line that will cover 10 berths at the port of Mombasa, linking the bulk cargo terminal of the main island and the container terminal of the Mombasa port. China Communication Construction Company spokesperson Stephen Zhao says the contractor used 16 concrete T-beams to cover the 15 pillars covering the Indian Ocean Channel. The bridge is expected to ease the flow of goods from the port of Mombasa to the SGR line.